So we had a big rainstorm last night, and we learned a little bit about this thing. We definitely learned that the D-hue can put too much water, too fast, and we came in and the fish pond was almost up cracking that line hole there. I've removed some of the water, but it was way up there. And we don't really want that, because if the pump stopped working, or if we lost power and all that good stuff, all the water that's in the creek is going to flow into the fish pond and overflow the fish pond, and it's going to leak it down into our box. Not the end of the world, but not something I really wanted to deal with. So what I did was just pulled the line out and put it in a bucket over there. We'll have to do that, and remember to do that if we're having a big rainstorm. We'll just have to remember that the D-hue definitely it doesn't evaporate as much, and the D-hue can overflow the system. It would probably take 2 days to do that, but at least a day and a half. So I would definitely not be able to leave out of here for like a week, and then if we had a rainstorm come through and it rained for 2 or 3 days straight, we would have an issue. So that's good to know. Jolly Pond is looking really good. Oh, we had to cut out a male. You'll see that there's a missing tree here. And that was a male. I believe this one is a male as well. It's not close to being even having nuts yet, but we're gonna allow this as a female. I know this is a female, and I believe, pretty sure this one is too. Pretty sure I see some white hairs. It's just hard to tell. Sometimes these little white hairs and my eyes aren't the best. So I just let them go until I know for sure. Like these over here. These are the divine pine. And these I haven't seen any hairs yet. So it's really tough to tell. I know there are ways to tell. You can look at the corners and see if this little leaves are longer than the other. I understand that, but I like to wait. I'm just going to leave the roots and let the plant photosynthesize and send sugar down into the soil, because that's really what I'm doing here, is building that soil. So the more plants I have, the faster and better off we're going to be. So the more leaf structure I have, the more sugar we're going to produce, and they will push that stuff down into the ground and feed our microorganisms, and we are off to the races. You can see our Venus flytrap. It's really starting to shoot off new growth. I've been told to cut. You can cut those off. Might cut 1 or 2 off, but it just looks too good. I'm gonna let it go. Our Virginia heartland, looking pretty good. It's like a wild ginger. All our moss is looking really good. All the grasses is going to seed. We cut the tops off before they went to seed. And our algae in our creek is really starting to subside. I mean, we still have it, but it's not as much. And we've stuck these little cuttings in here just for the hell of it, just to see if they would root. Just an experiment, really. I don't know if we have enough light time in here right now for them to root, but who knows, they might. This one here has that leafception I was showing you. Look at that. Pretty cool. That, from what I understand, will have a little bud come out of it. It's got another one right there. So we're going to be hanging a different light today as well. This is a 1000, I think, Spider Farmer. I have an upgrade. It's a little bit bigger. This way I can raise that light up and get some of that heat off of the plant. We raise the chills up. Raise that up. We were generating a little too much heat. The plant was getting too close to the light. And I have plenty of room so we can raise it up and still get the light we need without the heat. Everything looks good today. We added some new moss. It's a little patch of moss right here that we added. Found that on a log down by the reservoir. So there's still wood underneath that, and I just laid that on partial on the soil and partial on that rock. Put some sand, silt, and clay and some pea gravel around it. Now it should wick. It's going to be wicking water, just like this one is. You can see how good it's doing. Moss is just really taking off. Look at that. How cool is that looking? I love moss because when you get really close up on it and with a camera, you see some really cool stuff. It's like a little mini ecosystem in itself, like a mini forest. I've been learning a lot about moss lately, and moss, you know, it has its own, each individual piece has, and they're not even roots. They don't even call them roots. They call them root-like. Root-like. There's a word for that, scientific word for that, but I can't remember it. But it means root-like, and they're not actual roots. They don't actually root themselves, but they all connect to one another and create this mini ecosystem all on their own, which is super cool. Not to mention a microbial paradise. And actually moss is, that's something else I learned. Moss is a, what am I trying to say? That microbes don't like it. That's why birds use it to build homes and build nests, because it's a antimicrobial. So moss is antimicrobial. And that kind of goes again, when I heard that, I was like, uh-oh, but it kind of goes, but it's kind of a good thing because it keeps everything in balance. And that's what we want. We want microbes, but we also want places where things can go and thrive without the threat of getting contaminated by bad microbes. So we have the moss, which is antimicrobial. Things can go there and grow and thrive without the threat. And I am no scientist. I am just observing. I'm more of an observer, really. I like to do things and then sit back and observe and see what happens. My problem is sometimes I go overboard and start changing things and doing things that I shouldn't do because I'm impatient sometimes, and I don't ever get to see the final result of what it would have been, you know, because I keep tweaking and adding things. So I'm trying to do something a little different with this, and we're just going to let it go and see what happens. And if I have to intervene, I will, but so far I really haven't had to, other than removing sand and silt from the edges to get the moisture content right, which I think we've finally gotten pretty close. Of course, there's always going to be tweaks. Go over here and see. Jasmine is going to start to take off here, I'm sure. We're going to wrap this, let this grow around our rock. We've got some ivy here as well, so you can see that starting to take. Got some new growth there. So as that grows, we're going to grow that underneath the jasmine, and we'll kind of intertwine the two. This is some diachondra grass. That's just some pine bark I put in there. It had some moss on it. It's just basically a home for whatever. Some more cuts from the Cherry Grande, just stuck in there just to play around with. We did catch a mouse. Two of them, excuse me. We caught 2 mice. Check this out. This moss is starting to grow, it's starting to tap in. We're starting to get little grasses growing all along the edge. We're going to put some more sand and silt right there on that spot. Connect that. I did notice that was a little dry right there. Something else about moss is that it does not wick water. And how this moss is wicking water, and the reason this stays moist is because of the sand and silt that's from the creek. It is overlapping under, so basically the moss sits on top of that sand and silt. Sand and silt is wicking that moisture up underneath the moss and then distributes it across the bed here. So there's a layer of sand and silt that goes underneath this mulch layer all the way across this bed. And then I put the mulch layer on top. So that allows the creek, the sand and silt, to wick that moisture up. It enters into the moss and then goes across that layer. And it spreads across that sand and silt, just like nature intended it to. So it's actually pretty cool. So it keeps that top, I've got a good 2.5 inches of mulch, and then the sand and silt, probably an inch layer of sand and silt, and then the soil under that. That sand and silt stays wet, it stays moist all the time because it's wicking water from the creek. How that's going to interact with everything, I have no idea, but so far so good. The plants seem to love it. The plants are tapped into the soil. We're in a horizontal system, so there is rock and pea gravel at the bottom, sand, silt, and clay, a layer of red clay, yellow clay, sand, silt, and clay from the reservoir that's in the creek, and then soil, and then another layer of sand, silt, and clay, and then our mulch. So it's a layered system. So when you plant a plant, you're basically planting it into that sand and silt. It loves it. It takes off, gets into the root, and gets into the soil, and we're off to the races. Once those roots get down into that third layer of sand and silt down at the bottom, and then tap into that reservoir underneath into our sandbox, it's over. We don't have to do anything. The plants tap into that reservoir. You can see here the soil's been dumped down in there, but if we get too much water overflowing like we did at the beginning, this will fill up and we can pump it out and either put it back in the fish pond because it's clean water by then because it's gone through all the layers of sand and silt, and we can reuse it. So far we haven't had to do that. The plants and everything are wicking up all that extra water, and yeah, so we're going to see how it goes from here. As the roots, we get more roots, we'll get better filtration in the creek system. As the grasses grow along the edges, it'll create better filtration. We'll plant more grasses. So the more we plant in the creek system and in the pond, the cleaner our water is going to be. cleaner our water is going to be, the healthier everything is going to be, and everything should thrive. But this is all an experiment, so first time for me, first time for you guys. So I hope you enjoy and like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.